Okay, so we are reading 14 lessons in yogi philosophy and Oriental occultism. We are on the 8th lesson, occult therapeutics. The student of the history of man will find in the legends, folklore, and history of all peoples evidences of the fact that healing by some form of occult practice has been followed by all races, all peoples at all times. These various forms of occult therapeutics have varied from the revolting practices accompanying the grossest form of barbaric superstition to the most refined form of procedure accompanying some of the fashionable metaphysical cults of today. These various forms of occult healing of disease have been attached to all forms of religion, from the degraded Buddhism of Africa to the highest forms of religion known to the world. All sorts of theories have been advanced to account for the cures which have resulted from all these forms of healing. All manner of creeds built around the fact that cures have been made. Priests, teachers, and healers have claimed divine powers and insisted that they were representatives of the particular deity which was worshipped in their respective countries, simply because they were able to perform cures of bodily ills. And in nearly every case, these priests and healers have claimed the cures as proof positive of the truth of the respective religion or school of religious thought which they favored, and at the same time insisted that all other forms of religions or occult healing were bogus and counterfeit, and that they, the said priests making the claim, had the only real thing, dire penalties being often threatened to those who dared to patronize any of the opposition healers or priests. Human nature is much the same all over the world and in all times. We find the same rivalry and claim of the only real thing existing today, both in the case of the rival voodoo doctors of Africa and the polished leaders of the fashionable metaphysical cults of America, and among all who come in between these two poles. Alas, for these claimers of a monopoly of one of the nature's great forces, these people who make cures in spite of their theories rather than because of them. Nature's great recuperative force is as free as air and sunshine and may be used by anyone who cares to do so. It is not owned or controlled by any person, cult, or school, and no particular form of religious belief is necessary to one in order that he may obtain benefit from it. God's children amuse themselves with many forms, sects, and creeds, but he knows them all as his children and smiles at their childish desires to form themselves into cliques of chosen people attempting to shut out their brethren from the common heritage. It must have become evident to the student that there must be some great principle underlying all these varying forms of occult healing, because they all make cures in spite of the fact that each claims to have the only correct theory and denounces the theories of others. There must be some great force which they are all using blindly in many cases, and their differing theories and creeds which they have built up around their cures must be merely regarded as incidents of the use of the great healing force, and in no way the real explanation of the phenomena of occult healing. Any explanation to be worth a moment's attention must explain or attempt to explain all the various forms of occult healing, for all the various cults and schools make cures and have done so in all ages, in spite of their creeds and theories. The yogi philosophers have, for centuries past, known and practiced various forms of occult therapeutics and have studied deeply and thoroughly into the principles underlying the cures. But they have never deceived themselves into imagining that they had any monopoly of the matter. In fact, their researches and experiments have convinced them that all healers are using a great natural force, the same in all cases, although applied and called into operation in various ways. And that the metaphysical theories, religious beliefs, claims of divine favoritism, etc., that have been built around this occult healing have no more to do with it than they would have to do with electricity or magnetism. had they been built around these great forces instead of around the great healing force. The yogis realized that all forms of healing are but different means of calling into operation this great force of nature, some forms being fitted for one case and some for others, combinations being often used to suit some particular case. The yogis realized that prana is the direct force used in all of these cures, although the prana is called into operation in several different ways, as we shall see as we proceed. They teach that all forms of occult healing can be explained in this way. In fact, they perform cures in nearly all the ways used by the great schools of occult therapeutics and have for centuries, believing that the one theory underlies them all. They divide the forms of healing into three general classes: pranic healing, including what is known to the Western world as magnetic healing; two, mental healing, including several forms of mental and psychic healing, including absent treatments, as well as cures made under what is known as the law of suggestion; three, spiritual healing, which is a very rare form of healing and is possessed by those of advanced spiritual attainment and is a very different thing from that which is called by the same name by some of the healers of today. But under even the last advanced form of healing lies the same force, prana. Prana is the instrument by which the cure is effected, no matter what method is used or who uses it. In considering the subject of occult therapeutics, we must go back to the beginning. Before considering the question of cure, we must look at the healthy body. The yogi philosophy teaches that God gives to each individual a physical machine adapted to his needs, and also supplies him with the means of keeping it in order and of repairing it if his negligence allows it to become inefficient. The yogis recognize the human body as the handiwork of a great intelligence. They regard its organism as a working machine, the conception and operation of which indicates the greatest wisdom and care. They know that the body is because of a great intelligence, and they know that the same intelligence is still operating through the physical body, and that the individual falls in with the working of the divine law, so he will continue in health and strength. They also know that when man runs contrary to that law, inharmony and disease result. They believe that it is ridiculous to suppose that this great intelligence caused the beautiful human body to exist and then ran away and left it to its fate. For they know that the intelligence still presides over each and every function of the body and may be safely trusted and not feared. That intelligence, the manifestation of which we call nature or life principle and similar names, is constantly on the alert to repair damage, heal wounds, knit together broken bones, to throw off harmful materials which have accumulated in the system, and in thousands of ways to keep the machine in good running order. Much of what we call disease is really a beneficent action of nature designed to get rid of poisonous substances which we have allowed to enter and remain in our system. Let us see just what this body means. Let us suppose a soul seeking a tenement in which to work out this phase of its existence. Occultists know that in order to manifest in certain ways, the soul has need of a fleshy habitation. Let us see what the soul requires in the way of the body, and then let us see whether nature has given it what it needs. In the first place, the soul needs a highly organized physical instrument of thought, an essential station from which it may direct the workings of the body. Nature provides that wonderful instrument, the human brain, the possibilities of which we, at this time, but faintly recognize. The portion of the brain which man uses in this stage of his development is but a tiny part of the entire brain area. The unused portion is awaiting the evolution of the race. Secondly, the soul needs organs designed to receive and record the various forms of impressions from without. Nature steps in and provides the eye, the ear, the nose, the organs of taste, and the nerves whereby we feel. Nature is keeping other senses in reserve until the need of them is felt by the race. Then, means of communication between the brain and the different parts of the body are needed. Nature has wired the body with nerves in a wonderful manner. The brain telegraphs over these wires instructions to all parts of the body, sending its orders to cell and organ, and insisting upon immediate obedience. The brain receives telegrams from all parts of the body, warning it of danger, calling for help, making complaints, etc. Then the body must have means of moving around in the world. It has outgrown the plant-like inherited tendencies and wants to move on. Besides this, it wants to reach out after things and to turn them to its own use. Nature has provided limbs and muscles and tendons with which to work the limbs. Then the body needs a framework to keep it in shape, to protect it from shock, to give it strength and firmness, to prop it up, as it were. Nature gives it the bony frame known as the skeleton, a marvelous piece of machinery which is well worthy of your study. The soul needs a physical means of communication with other embodied souls. Nature supplies the means of communication in the organs of speech and hearing. The body needs a system of carrying repair materials to all of its systems, all of its system, to build up, replenish, repair, and strengthen all the several parts. It also needs a similar system whereby the waste, refuse matter may be carried to the crematory, burned up, and sent out of the system. Nature gives us the life-carrying blood, the arteries and veins through which it flows to and fro, performing its work. The lungs to oxygenize the blood and to burn up the waste matter. See Science of Breath, chapter 3. We might read Science of Breath next, actually. The body needs material from the outside with which to build up and repair its parts. Nature provides means of eating the food, of digesting it, of extracting the nutritious elements, of converting it into shape for absorption by the system, of excreting the waste portions. And finally, the body is provided with means of reproducing its kind and provided other souls with fleshy tenements. It is well worth the time of anyone to study something of the wonderful mechanism and workings of the human body. One gets from this study a most convincing realization of the reality of the great intelligence in nature. He sees the great life principle in operation. He sees that it is not blind chance or haphazard happening, but that it is the work of a mighty intelligence. Then he learns to trust that intelligence and to know that which brought him into physical being will carry him through life. That the power which took charge of him then has charge of him now and will have charge of him always. As we open ourselves to the inflow of the great life principle, so we will be benefited. If we fear it or trust it not, we shut the door upon it and must necessarily suffer. The student may well ask what all this has to do with occult therapeutics, and complain that we are giving him a lesson in Hatha Yoga, in which latter statement he would be near the truth. But we cannot get away from the idea that there is that in nature which tends toward keeping a man in perfect health, and we cannot help feeling that the true teaching is rather to instruct people how to keep well in the first place, rather to point out how they may get well after they have violated nature's laws. The yogis think that it is illogical to build up a cult around methods of healing. They feel that if cults must be built up, then let them rally around the center of health, allowing the curing of disease to be merely incidental. In Hatha Yoga, our forthcoming book, we will give the principles of the yogi philosophy of perfect health, in which is taught the doctrine that health is the normal condition of man, and that disease is largely a matter of ignorance and the disobeying of natural laws of living and thinking. We will teach there that the healing power exists in every man and may be called into operation consciously or unconsciously. Occult healing is merely the calling into play of this inner force within the individual, sometimes with the assistance of other individuals, and the opening up of the system to the recuperative energies already within itself. All healing is occasioned by what we have called the vital force in the individual. The active principle of this vital force is, as we have explained, that manifestation of universal force, prana. In order to avoid repetition, we would refer you to Science of Breath and to lesson 7 of this course for an explanation of the nervous system and how prana operates over it. Read over what we have said on this subject, and you will be able to more clearly understand what we are about to say regarding the different forms of occult healing. Let us suppose that a person has neglected the rules of right living and thinking, as set forth in Hatha Yoga and other works on the subject, and has run down in health. He has tried different forms of material treatment and wishes to avail himself of what he may be found in this and wishes to avail himself of what may be found in the several forms of occult therapeutics. He finds himself offered several forms of occult healing. We will try to make plain to you how these different forms of healing operate and the explanation behind each. We cannot give you detailed information and methods in a lesson of this size, for each system would require a volume to do that. But we hope to give you a general idea of the several forms of treatment. I'm just wondering if I pause here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we start these tomorrow. You know, I recently listened. Amanda she actually has it available to the public for free on Rev's YouTube channel. And if anyone's interested in it, I can dig it up and send it to you, or you can just scroll through the channel. But Amanda had put out a COVID Ayurveda, like 2-hour workshop, and I hadn't listened to it. And I recently, while I was dog sitting last time, a few weeks ago, I listened to it. And even though at that point of summer, I thought COVID was ending, I didn't know it was gonna like have this resurgence. I was still like, it's still so relevant, the information, because the information she gives us is how to keep our body healthy, and not so much to fight COVID, but just to maintain this very healthy lifestyle, even before disease kicks in, like to prevent disease. But I was glad I listened to it, because COVID's coming. I mean, COVID's back. COVID never went away. In my head, it did, but I was just being in ignorance and denial. So I love when they say things like the yogis want to teach us to be healthy, and we should be constantly, like I read it as like disease should be the rare exception. Like we shouldn't have all these ways how to heal ourselves. We should just always be doing that. We should just always be healthy. But of course, like there's things we can't prevent, like the water we drink can cause illness for us in New York. You know, like there's other parts of living in New York, or depending where you live, that's going to influence your health. Like being on the subway, I can't even imagine how sick everyone's going to get in September just from being away from each other for so long. Like just the amount of regular colds and stuff.
Oh yeah, right. Like building your immunity all over again.
Yeah. Like the sentence where they said that health is the normal condition of man, and that disease is largely a matter of ignorance and the disobeying of laws of living and thinking. I like that health is the normal condition of man.
I'm trying to see if I can explain this thing I saw yesterday quickly.
Yeah.
I'll try. I was watching this movie yesterday. It was I don't know the name actually. Oh, I must have woke somebody up. Hold on. Let me move. My husband got his shot and he's been sick, so he's home.
Oh
He
no.
got a bad reaction to it. Yeah.
Which one did he have?
And Moderna, and it's the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it really kicked his butt. So
How many days is he sick for?
this is the second day. He got it on Sunday.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So I'll try to explain this thing I saw yesterday, which just has me still thinking. I actually don't know the name of the movie, but I caught the middle to the end of it. My husband was watching it yesterday, and it was about these people who like this woman had this grand idea of having a farm with all things growing, and it was completely natural, and that it was all working in harmony and balance with the animals and the different things they were growing, etc. And so like they buy the farm, and the dirt is like completely dead, right? It's like you pick it up and it's dry, and they can't even like get into it. And so they found this guy who like is an expert on that type of farming. I don't know the name of it. And so like he came and like told them how to rearrange everything and what to do. And like towards the end of it, putting it together, he passed away. So they had like no mentor anymore. But so like first what happened was like this coyote kept killing their chickens like over and over again. They wake up and all these chickens are dead. And they like really didn't want to kill the coyote. Oh, the reason they bought the farm is interesting because they were living in the city and their dog wouldn't stop barking, and they got evicted from their apartment. So they're like, the reason we moved out here is because of this dog, and like we don't want to kill anything. They really wanted everything to live in harmony. So like after I don't know how many nights it happened, but eventually they're like, okay, we got to kill the coyote. So they killed the coyote, but it was like a really like hard thing for them to do, and you could see how much they were suffering from that. And then then like the next thing they had is like all these starlings were eating their fruit. And then after that, like there was some kind of like aphid infestation, and anyway, it goes on and on and on. And then they realized that like all these things, if you let them be, start balancing each other out. Like they started getting owls who then ate the starlings, and then they found out that the coyotes were actually eating some kind of moles that were eating the roots of their trees. And like in the end, like everything balanced each other out, and like their place was not only a farm, but it was like this wildlife sanctuary because everything was coming in and everything was living in harmony. And like the death of things was feeding the soil, and their soil was so healthy, and it's growing all these macro organisms and blah 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 in it from things dying. But it like really made me think about back to the Gita. This has nothing to do with what we read. I just realized the story.
I think it does though. I think it does. I'll tell you why, but you can go back to the Gita.
But it kind of reminded me of like everything the Gita was talking about. It's like things may appear bad or good or for benefit or for whatever, but in the end, it's really everything. If you really let things do what they're supposed to do, everything in the end really works in harmony for each other and for a balance. So I was kind of thinking about that yesterday. I was like, well, that can apply to life if we let it, right? Like if I let something bad happen, or you let go of something that you're trying to hold on to, and so on and so forth.
I think it does have like what comes up for me when you tell that story, it makes me think of like this might not be the greatest example, but like you go get sick, you have a sore throat, you go to the doctor, they give you pills, you go home, you take the pills, you feel better, you move on with life. But like, why did you get the sore throat? Like, and they give you pills, but then maybe like that leads to another illness, like they don't check. Like sometimes you hear of like these crazy stories and it's like, there's something else lying there. And with Amanda's workshop, she goes through like, she'll, you really have to like dig deep at the underlying issues of everything and how everything is working together. So it's like, okay, well, you have a sore throat, and maybe you caught it from like germs in the city or something, but maybe you're not eating healthy, or maybe you're not sleeping properly, and they just keep handing you the pills, and then you don't change your routine, and then you're back in the doctor's office the next month,
Yeah.
So it's like the pills being the coyote, like you think you're fixing the problem, but really and there's another, I never watched it, but there's another, it's pretty well known that the story of the wolves, I think it's the wolves in the park in like Yellowstone or one of the national parks, where they removed all the wolves, but then the deer population and then they put the wolves back, and now everything's like working in harmony again.
Yeah, right. I remember that now.
Yeah, so it made me think of that too. And so like when I get sick, it's more like I don't rush to the doctor always. I mean, I understand that it's there for a reason, but sometimes I just go lay in bed and rest, and I eat, I like make sure I stay hydrated, and like I try to figure out why. And if you really think about it, you're like, well, I stayed up too late the last few nights, or I wasn't eating healthy, or I wasn't taking care of myself. And I kind of just let my body balance itself out instead of shoving pills down my throat.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, of course, I'm not against going to get the pills, but I haven't had an antibiotic in a real, like 15, there I go again to 15, 20 years. So, but we do need them sometimes. I just don't get sick that often. So, but some people do, and like they are happy just going to the doctor. But I'm always like, well, why did I get sick? What's
Yeah.
the underlying issue?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so that's a cool story though with the farm.
Yeah, no, it was really like, it was a great show.
The other thing I thought was cool that made me relate it to what we read today was like they got to the farm and they didn't just like throw the seeds in and start planting. Like they made sure the soil was like good for us, like, and we
Yeah.
do that with our bodies too. Like we have to make sure our bodies are healthy. They do this like, I don't have any expertise with like cancer, but like I feel like the first thing they do with people is like you got to get stronger, you got to get healthy, like physical therapy, like your body has to be strong before you can start fighting whatever it is you're fighting. Like you got to get it as healthy as you can get it before you start, whether it's like a surgery or chemo or whatever you got going on, because the recovery from that is intense from
Yeah.
anything. So
It's so true.
It's that idea of like if you plant all those seeds in bad soil, they're either gonna grow with the bad soil in it, or they're gonna not grow at all, and you're gonna be like, why isn't my stuff growing?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so I thought it totally related for today. I thought that's why you were sharing it. But I also think everything comes back to the Gita now. I loved how they talked about like the greater intelligence, like the capital I. Like that was like, to me, thinking about that bigger thing.
Right.
Okay. If we have anything else to share or ask or whatever, and then we can move into breath and meditate.
I'm ready. I'm gonna jump off after breath.
Okay. Denver's loving all this yogi philosophy.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a few breaths in through the nose and out through the nose, sitting up nice and tall or laying down on our back, whatever feels good this morning. I'll take a few rounds of alternate nostril breath, letting your left hand rest in your lap. Bring your right hand over to the face and close the right nostril with the thumb. Inhale through the left. Close the left with the ring finger. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. Inhale left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. Inhale left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. Inhale left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. You can release the palm or take a few more rounds. I'm gonna set the timer. And have a beautiful day if you jump off early. And we'll see you tomorrow. bringing Hands to Heart Center. Namaste. Have an awesome day, everybody.
Thank you.